Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Expert Insights. I can see a lot of people have started joining in. This is Tushan, an NLP expert. Tushan, let's welcome everyone first. I can see Bent has joined in. Hi, Bent.
Hey Ben,
Uh, then there's Tarek. Hi,
Tariq.
Tarek.
Hey Tariq,
Hi, John.
John,
And then we've also got
and
Ray.
Ray.
Hi, Ray.
Hey Ray.
Hello, everyone, and everyone else who've joined in. Please add in your comments so we can welcome you as well. While we're doing that, Tushan, let's begin with. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So welcome everyone. And thank you for taking time to join this session. It was really great to see such an audience here. Just tuning in to listen and ask questions, which is really great. And yeah, good morning, good evening, good afternoon for everyone around the world. So to introduce myself, so I'm Tushan. I'm the author of NLP with TensorFlow, second edition, which we launched in this session. So currently I'm working as a senior machine learning engineer at an Australian company called Canva, which is revolutionizing online visual communication. So I work with specifically in recommendations. So we work with millions and billions of items, very large scale data problems. So that's my background, and I have a PhD, finished a PhD in 2018 in machine learning at the University of Sydney.
Brilliant. So we've got more people joining in. There's Tonga. Tushan, you know what? I'll just change the layout of this. Yeah, because the questions have been, all the comments have been covering your face, and I don't want that. And we've also got Mariama. Hi, Mariama. And we've got Varshal, Norma. Hello, everyone. Hello. And there's someone called LinkedIn user. I'm pretty sure that was like a typing twister for them. Our names are quite similar. It's just alphabets here and there, and then N and R at the end. Hello, everyone. And there's someone who's just gone directly into the session. And here's my first query before even I can ask you. So, Tushan, please take it away. What are the new contents added to the second edition?
Yeah, cool. So that's a really good question. So one of the most important things we did in this revamp is, so if you remember the first edition, it was written in TensorFlow 1. And then in TensorFlow 2, Keras became the main model building API. So we converted everything to Keras from using raw TensorFlow operations to build our models, which is far more easier to understand and far better capabilities provided in Keras. The second one, I would say, the content on transformers. So you can see transformers used for NLP problems like question answering. And then in the last chapter, we talk about kind of combining two different transformer-based models, like a vision transformer and text-based transformer to generate image captions. I would say those are the two main ones. And additionally, we are using a lot more of the tf.data API to build our data pipelines, as opposed to using raw operations from NumPy, Pandas, kind of this ad hoc organization of different libraries, which is much easier to maintain and much performant when it comes to TensorFlow. So I would say those are the key points.
All right. So I can see a lot of comments are coming in, and Norma, thank you for this. And anyone who's seeing this comment, if you're watching it on YouTube or LinkedIn, if you want to win a copy of Tushan's ebook, please comment #packed. Two lucky winners will stand the chance to win the book. We'll have a raffle going on later. So, Tushan, to take the session ahead while I'm waiting for other people to ask their queries, what is NLP for a layman person as me? And who is the target audience for your book?
Yeah. Again, really good question. So if I explain NLP, fun fact actually, if you type just NLP, for me at least, what comes up as the first result is not natural language processing, it's neuro-linguistic programming, which is like a subject in psychology, which is, yeah, interesting. But I would say NLP is sort of processing written or oral content. But there is this unspoken understanding when it comes to natural language processing, and it's always about text. And speech recognition, speech-related other tasks like speech synthesis, they have evolved to be in their own space. So they kind of recognize as kind of a separate space. So we mostly talk about written text, like processing written text when it comes to NLP. And if I had to give one sentence to explain NLP, I would say it's to use clean and pre-processed text to build a model which can either output a decision or another representation. So, for example, a decision would be a sentiment analyzer, which would say, take in a movie review and say whether it's a positive review, a negative review, or a neutral review. Whereas in another representation would be such as machine translation, where you convert a given text to another language. So these are the main two tasks that are covered by NLP. And yeah, I think that's what I would explain NLP as.
And Antushan, who would be the target audience for your book? Would it be someone at a beginner level trying to learn NLP, or? Yeah,
I would say beginner to intermediate. I think this book is written in a way that it can get someone who doesn't have experience with TensorFlow up to speed as well, but having some sort of experience, like, just installing the library, just playing around, going through the first basic tutorial, that would get you up to speed even quicker. So I would say it's targeted towards beginner to intermediate, and it's not just the basics you will learn. You will, for example, in the latest chapters, you learn how to combine two different sequential models, like LSTM to LSTM, to generate sequence-to-sequence content, like machine translation. And you even learn how to combine a vision transformer with a text transformer to generate image captions, which is like a multimodal problem. So it's kind of designed to cover both beginner and intermediate who are wanting to start with TensorFlow and learn machine learning.
Perfect. And we have more questions coming in. There's someone on YouTube who inquires, do you have content for medical-related document classification in the book?
Yeah, that's a good question. Not particularly. So there's no particularly targeted medical document classification use cases covered in the book. However, there is document classification and there is sentence classification. So it's just a matter of understanding kind of what kind of data exploration / data cleaning is required. And you can just plug in these models explained in the book to your problem.
And there's another question by Tarek. He inquires, well, he's read the book and he likes it. Thanks for that, Tarek. And he sees that you've devoted a lot of chapters on RNN, CNN, etc. But do you think in future transformers would make these obsolete?
That's a very interesting question, and that's something I've actually thought about. And I think I wrote an article about this like a few months ago. Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think to a certain extent, yes. And that's why in this new edition, we dedicated like 2 chapters for transformers and kind of covering that in more detail. Whereas in its first edition, transformers weren't really out. But I don't think they would be fully obsolete because transformers, well, they are getting there, but they still require a lot of memory to run. So in more constrained spaces or constrained resources like mobile, and if you have like short sequences of data, I think LSTMs and RNNs are still a good option because they can run in way less memory than what a transformer might require. But yeah, transformers are taking over a lot of space that was kind of dominated by LSTMs and these sequential models.
Okay. Uh, so just to answer one of Tonga's earlier question, what I would recommend everyone to do is, so Tonga inquired about the sort of examples and everything used in the book. What I would recommend everyone to do is you all could have a look at the GitHub repository. I'll just put it up on screen
Yeah.
now.
Yeah,
Here it
that's a
is.
great point. Yeah, you have like all the code free in there, and
Yeah,
I try to make all the notebooks self-explanatory to a
yeah,
good extent. So yeah, just
yeah.
go through the notebooks.
Yeah, you could have a look at this GitHub repository for the book, and all the uh, code repositories could be run directly on Google Colab, Gradient, Studio Lab, Kaggle directly, and you could see the output and how it's running and everything. All the prerequisites are here, everything is here. So you don't have to literally run them on your platform. Everything could be done directly from here. Uh, to find Tushan, it's very simple. This is Tushan's GitHub. It's THUSHV89, or if you can just type on Google, if you just type Tushan Ganadagera, his full name, plus GitHub, I think this is the first one that pops up. That's how I find it always. And you can then pop it up and have a look if this is the sort of example that you're looking for. That's the easiest way to do it. So there are another query over here from Saddam. Does it contain radiological reports processing?
Um, that's an interesting question. I'm not sure what they exactly meant, like whether processing the text part of a radiological report or sort of combining images and text in certain way. But I guess to give the general answer again, sort of going back to that previous question I answered, no, not directly, but there's a very high chance that like almost like 100% chance you can use one of those models explained in the book for your problem with some data exploratory and data cleaning steps in front of that.
Saddam, if you are not happy with that answer, if you could just clarify what you meant, I'll pop up your question again, and then we can pick it up later. For now, Norma has inquired, would I be able to create concept maps from paragraph text, having a whitelist and other relational rules?
Again, I'm not really clear about the question. I wonder they mean or they talk about knowledge graphs. Maybe if you can clarify that, Norma, I might be able to answer that question better.
Yeah, let's wait for Norma to clarify that.
List
And
other relational rules.
well, I wanted to inquire, Prashant, where do you see NLP is headed, and what do you foresee the future of it to be like?
Yeah, I guess like first I might talk about like why NLP is important as well. I think that's an important topic.
Yeah.
Like there is this saying that sort of like a picture worth 1,000 words, but then I would ask like, how often do you need 1,000 words to explain what you need? So there is definitely like a lot of use cases for NLP. And if you think about these other modalities of data, like images, videos, they're always kind of accompanied by some text, like captions, keywords, titles, which are things that I use to explain what is in the image. And until recent times, they were used for a lot of machine learning problems when it comes to searching images and things like that. The other point is if it is a software product with a search capability, there's a 100% chance that it is using NLP underneath. And there's so many softwares that are using search capabilities. That's literally, it's hard to name one that doesn't, to be honest. So there's like simple pre-processing, like lowering case, removing punctuations, lemmatization, and also complex ones like named entity recognition and machine translation that would be happening in these search pipelines. So there's always this lot of use cases for that. And the other area that is booming is voice assistants. What they usually do is they convert speech to text and then do all the NLP on that processed text. So after speech is converted to text, there's so much opportunities for NLP to come in and improve that query understand what the user is trying to say. And finally, I think in the corporate side, the biggest user of data science would be the financial industry. And if you think about insurance, banks, they pretty much only operate on, like, not only, but like, let's say 90% operates on text reports, transaction descriptions, claim descriptions, things like that. So yeah, I think NLP is quite important. It's a quite important topic. Do we want to go to a question from the audience, or should I go to the trends?
Yeah. So Norma has clarified it that she didn't mean knowledge graphs.
Yeah, great. Unfortunately, this book doesn't cover knowledge graphs. Hopefully that will be something we're working on a newer edition. But yeah, so I guess like one of the most important things in knowledge graphs is getting the embeddings for the entities that are present in the knowledge graph. So that's something you can learn from this book. So we go into detail about, how word vectors work, different types of word vectors like skipgram, CB, continuous bag of words, glove, Elmo. You can see all of these embedding types and kind of get that much needed foundational knowledge, and hopefully combine that with knowledge graph building to sort of get to your end solution. But yeah, we will definitely consider covering that in a later edition, because that's a very important topic.
Yeah, so Norman, this book was always meant to be like a primer for a lot of people to get started with natural language processing. That's the reason why we couldn't cover a lot of topics as much as we would have liked to. There's only so much room in a book to add concepts. If we keep on adding it, it would become like a big giant one, and it would still not fit in the post. And there is another suggestion by Tariq, and this is quite an interesting one. XAI is important, and yeah, perhaps we could even think of adding something about ethical AI in the next edition.
Yeah, definitely. That's an important topic, and yeah, kind of going back to your question, Tushar, that was one of the trends I was going to talk about, because that's been getting a lot of attention these days.
So, all right, let's get to this, and then probably towards the later part, we could get onto the trends. So Saddam had the question earlier on radiological reports processing. So yeah, he's clarified it that his main concern is individual radiological reports processing, as well as in combination with medical images. So the text as well as in combination with images.
Yeah. So yeah, sort of combining some of the answers I've given in the past. So Tushar, circling back to your comment, yes, this was meant to be like a primer, more general purpose book, suited for a wider audience. So we don't really cover like specific like niche use cases. But what you can do is you can combine a lot of different techniques explained in the book. Like, for example, for processing images and text. Well, for images, you can read the last chapter, which is about generating image captions. And if you change that text decoder part with something explained in the previous chapter, which is the on just transformers, and transformers you can use for many different tasks like token classification, sequence classification, question answering, multiple choice questions. So from that, if you choose something like sequence classification, then you can use your vision transformer to generate some representation of your radiological image, and then use that representation to make a decision on, like the sequence. So you can just select and combine different techniques from the book, but we don't really like targetedly talk about these topics.
Yeah, I agree with that. Tushan, we're almost at the halfway mark, so let us do our first raffle before we move ahead with more queries. A lot of people are quite keenly waiting to know if they've won the book or not. Let's do that. And I always like how it goes. I'll show you what I mean. So yeah, so there are about 7 people who've commented. Others who haven't commented, here's your chance. Go ahead and do that. Comment #packed. So we'll do a first draw now. And let's see who our first winner is. And Mariama Dream is our first winner. Congratulations, Mariama. So,
Congratulations.
and you're on LinkedIn, so that's great. So, if you can just drop me a note on LinkedIn with your email address, I'll get a copy arranged for you, Mariama. And we'll now move ahead to the next set of questions. Saddam is happy to hear your response. Thank you for the answer, he says. Uh, and so is Norma. Concepts are more valuable, embedding techniques. Thank you. Great. Uh, let's move on to the next question. Wow, this is a massive one. It's covered both of us. There are different types of attention mechanisms coming day by day by researchers, like Badano attention and long attention. This changing in attention play a major role in accuracy.
Yeah, interesting question again. Something I haven't really thought about too much. It would definitely have an impact on the accuracy, but I don't like, my personal opinion is I don't think it'll have too much of a impact from an accuracy perspective, because the attention mechanisms out there are already kind of doing the best they can. Like, conceptually, what you're trying to do is you're accessing all of the encoder's states and then create a weighted representation of that suited for your current time step. So conceptually, there's not much to be achieved in there, but I think there are a lot of improvements that could be made in terms of optimizing these attention mechanisms, especially for longer sequences. For example, if you've read about the transformer model, which is called the reformer, it is trying to use locality sensitive hashing to identify most similar encoder states, and not use attention on all of the encoder states. So having being able to narrow down your attention span really helps you to process much longer sequences. And in their paper, they would show they can expand it up to, I'm not really sure of the number, but a few thousands of tokens long sequences. So I think there's a lot of optimizations that could happen in the attention space, but not really sure about the accuracy or performance gains that could be achieved in there. But using attention definitely helps. Without attention and with attention, there is a clear difference for models.
Great. And I'm really happy that Mariama has seen that she's won the book. So congratulations once again, Mariama. I can see a lot of people in the comments congratulating you. Please get in touch with me on LinkedIn, and I'll ensure that you get your ebook. So, Tushan, what can one expect from your book, the second edition at least? What sort of concepts and techniques can they expect to learn from the book?
So the first one, going back again, word embeddings, which is like a foundational, one of the most crucial parts of modern deep learning. It's hard to find a model that doesn't use word embeddings. So that's why I kind of dedicate 2 chapters for just word embeddings. So we talk about the basic techniques like skipgram and continuous back of words model. So one might think why we're talking about old techniques when we have better, more recent embeddings like Elmo or Glove, or just randomly initializing and just jointly training with the model, which is what most of the new models doing. But these are quite, skipgram and CBOW, for example, that's still quite useful. For example, I'm working in recommendation area, and in recommendation, these NLP techniques translate almost 80% of the stuff I see. I can see clear similarities to concepts borrowed from NLP. Like when you're trying to generate item embeddings in recommendations, for example, you want to find out, if a user liked item A, would they like item B? And the best way to do that is generate item embeddings and compute the similarity. For that, you use skipgram. So you literally use skipgram to learn item embedding. So these are quite valuable. Like, even though in NLP you have better techniques, doesn't mean they're obsolete in other spaces. So that's why we talk about these techniques still. And the other important thing is to understand modern techniques. It's quite important to know these old techniques, because a lot of concepts are still, out there in these modern techniques. So that's one. The second one is obviously sequential models. Like, we talk about the simple RNN, we talk about the LSTM, we talk about the GRU, we talk about their differences. We compare performance between LSTMs and GRUs and see which ones are better. And then the third one is obviously transformers, which is, kind of the go-to solution whenever you have enough resources for an NLP problem. So yeah, I would say those are the main things. And additionally, again, we talk a lot about using these built-in data pipelines using TensorFlow, kind of going from raw data to a feature representation that is suitable for the model consumption. I think those cover a lot of the topics covered in the book.
Right. So, Tushan, nowadays, I'm a part, I have a Discord community created for Pact, and your book is also a part of it. And I can see a lot of people in the comment section are a part of that Discord community. So thanks everyone for joining, first of all. There are a lot of people who try to jump on directly to learning transformers. How important is learning the primer of, the primer of NLP before picking up transformers or just jumping ship directly onto transformers?
Yeah,
how important
quite important. Yeah, it is, I would say, essential. Not just important, because if you don't get the basics right, there's a very chance you can get lost, you can get demotivated to learn these new concepts, because the the barrier for entry is quite high. It's like, I can give you an analogy like this. Like one of the questions I see when it comes to these books is like, why wouldn't I go out there and learn from free resources? There's tons of free resources. For example, TensorFlow documentation itself is quite good, and I've learned, personally, I've learned a lot of stuff just by looking at TensorFlow documentation. So, and there are free blog posts out there, high quality ones. Why would I pay, dollars for something that is explaining what is freely available out there? I guess my analogy for that would be, imagine taking a first grader and putting them into school and say, hey, you can go to any classroom you want, you can learn anything, just go crazy. Then, first they might go to grade 10 and realize that that's not really for them, go to grade 12, realize that's even worse. And then they might go to grade 8 and realize that's not low enough. And then finally they end up in grade 1. And by the time they come to grade 1, the first graders who joined at the same time might be at grade 5. So yeah, it can be pretty overwhelming to get started with this documentation. You can easily get lost, and once you get lost, it's pretty easy to get into this vicious cycle of demotivation and just, kind of give up on that, which is pretty bad. So having this guidance, concrete, well-grounded guidance coming from a book or a course, is quite important for you to get started. And if you see, compared to 10 years ago, it's evolving and progressing much faster. Every single day, there's tens and hundreds of concepts just coming out. So it's important to have that guidance coming from a book.
Yeah, and I see Ben commenting, I was missing that at school. Ben, if I was at that school, I would have directly gone into PE classes every single day. A lot of people who can resonate with that. So before there are a lot of questions pending, and I'm sorry that I had to get this clarified first. Tariq inquires, what's next for you, Tushan? Are you working on another book? Are you learning some new technology?
Interesting question. I'm actually coming out of a streak of book writing, so might take some time off just to recuperate. in terms of working on new technologies, I usually I build this mentality automatically to sort of go and read stuff randomly. So I read blogs on towards data science, just go on YouTube and, just look at some like paper presentations, conference presentations, things like that. But I probably wouldn't work on a significant piece. For example, like when a new edition is due, I would obviously go and work on that. But other than that, probably not new books. Yeah.
And hopefully that answers your question for you, Tarek. Norma can resonate with it completely. She got scared of NLP after YouTube. There is a question from D3B on YouTube. Does the book cover pre-training of transformer models?
Yes, it does talk about, I don't know if your question is about whether we use pre-trained models or whether we are talking about the specifics of the pre-training, but the answer for both is yes. So we do cover what is used to pre-train a transformer model in the NLP context. I'm not really sure if I'm talking about the vision transformer. I think I do. But definitely, yes, for the text-based ones. And then, yes, we do use pre-trained models. For example, in question answering, we're using a pre-trained text-based model. And in the image caption generation, we are using the pre-trained vision transformer.
Great. I hope that answers your question for UD3V. And Juan Pablo has a question. Do you discuss topics such as speech-to-text or speech classification in your book?
Yeah, sort of going back to that unspoken understanding. We didn't really have the budget to prioritize speech classification because there were so many different topics in just written text to cover for us. But yeah, if we do get to that, that'll be a really important topic to cover because speech to text is, it's really important given the age of these new voice assistants and all of that's happening.
I love the next question from Norma, and this is something no one inquires when it comes to machine learning or deep learning. How much math is essential, Tushan, to understand your book?
So I guess one of my unique trademarks would be using less math to explain math concepts. For example, on Medium, I have this series of articles called Light on Math, Machine Learning. So that's one of my sort of almost passions to unravel the complexities of mathematics and try to explain them in more layman terms, more with less maths in that. So hopefully I'm not using a lot of math in there. But we do have chapters on talking about the gradients and stuff, like how the vanishing gradient is happening in these in these RNN models. But you can easily skip that if you want and go to the actual application of the thing. And once you have a better understanding of the model itself, you can come back and give it a try to understand the mathematics.
Great. And there's a different sort of banter going on with Benj and Norma in the comment section. Norma, you don't need to feel overwhelmed. You always have the Discord community to come back and keep on asking more and more questions. And we're always there to help you get over that fear and overwhelming feeling. Tonga has inquired a question. I hope I'm reading that name right. I'm really sorry if I'm not. But the question is, how solid is TF Hub transformer for sentence embedding?
Good question. So in the book, we cover both. We cover using TF Hub. We cover using Hugging Face's transformers model. So you have the flexibility to choose whichever option you think is better, but definitely the transformers library from Hugging Face is gaining more attention than TF Hub. I guess I think the best thing about the transformers library is that that's their niche, that's they're focusing on, instead of having this general purpose model zoo to use, which is Ecopies is doing. So I think like Transformers library itself has better support for transformers, and they're more focused and they're more tuned to improve these transformer models. So if I have to choose one, I would probably go with the Transformers library. But yeah, for simpler like standard tasks, Ecopies does the job. Like I've never had trouble with it. And
Great.
it does have the advantage of like just using TensorFlow specific technologies, which is probably better supported.
Yeah. I'm really glad that Tonga's name, I'm pronouncing it right. I hope that answers your questions, Tonga. And so, yeah, the raffle is still on. I'll take one last question because I can't see any more questions coming in. And I think Bent is right in saying this, that sometimes it's hard to find a book and YouTube presentation to hit the right level, no matter the topic. I think, yeah, I agree with that, Bent. And I'll keep your comment up here. Yeah, because to each person it's kind of different. Everyone has a different level and understanding and requirements. So yeah, it is quite difficult to find that right book for everyone. And
And
Tariq
it
agrees
does
with that
change.
as well. Yeah,
Like it does change over time as well. Like, once you gain more experience, more knowledge about the
yeah,
topics, you might prefer the mathematics or you might prefer the applied side. Yeah, it can be
yeah,
quite different. Yeah.
yeah. So before we do the last raffle, I'll ask you one last question, Tushan, and if anyone else, if you all still haven't entered the raffle, please comment hashtag packed in the comment section, and hopefully your name would come up in the draw. And Tushan, the last question that I wanted to ask you was, where do you see NLP heading in the future? If I haven't asked you that already, have I?
Sorry,
I've
what
covered
was the
so many.
question?
Where do you see NLP heading in the future? What do you
Oh, yeah.
foresee the trends?
We did come to the question, but didn't have time to answer.
Yeah,
So I can see three different areas which are picking up. So the first one is bigger and better transformers, because there is this appetite for bigger and bigger models in the transformers community. So for example, models like GPT and then GPT-2 and then GPT-3 is like a clear step in that direction. And for example, I don't know if everyone's seen, but Hugging Face, they open source their training of massive transformer model on 46 different languages called Bloom recently. So they talk about the massive engineering effort that is required to train these models, which is something these other companies do not disclose. And it's quite a lot. Like there's no chance just because you have the computational memory and the processing power you can get across. It requires like a whole engineering team to manage this solution for like months in order to train this model. So this blog post about Bloom, which is linked in my Medium article, covers this quite well. So yeah, there is this clear direction there. And then the other one is kind of one-fits-all approaches. Models trying to learn from different modalities, like images, text, speech in the same model. For example, I think Facebook AI, they published a paper on something called data to vec, which is trying to kind of map all these different modalities into the same space. And then obviously multitask learning, which we are already talking in this book, because transformer models are already doing multitasking, because in order to use a transformer for another task, all you need to do is change the head used by the model. The encoder stays as it is because all it's doing is the net language understanding part. And then zero-shot learning. I think that's the other important topic, where you try to formulate a different problem as a problem the model has seen, and you try to produce the answer or the output, correct output for that, which is quite an interesting topic. So I think these three subtopics cover what's happening in one-fits-all approaches. And then, Norma, I will paste the link here. Just give me a
You
minute
could do
before I
that.
forget that.
Yeah.
Right.
And Ray would also like me
How do
your
I
link to your Medium.
how do
You can just
I
you can post it in the comment section.
can I can't see an area to post. Can I share it with
Let
you
me
so you can?
Yeah, you can just share it with me and I can share it with Norma and Ray. I know both Norma and Ray
Yeah.
from yeah,
So yeah,
I can
I've
share it
sent
with
you.
them.
Yeah. So yeah, the last one is obviously what we talked about: ethical and responsible AI. So ethical AI is quite important because these models are becoming more and more data hungry. And obviously, the trend of these companies would be to use more and more user data to train these models. Now, the question is, where do we draw the line? Where are we invading users' privacy? Are we protecting our users' data enough? So having a proper framework to answer these questions and using AI in a certain way that doesn't breach privacy of users is quite important. So that's where ethical AI comes in. And then another topic is fairness. Like, when you're making a decision like a credit score, is your model biased towards certain demographics, ethnicities, or genders, things like that? That's an important topic as well. And then finally, I would say explainability of models. Like, how do we build trust about a model that made a decision for us? So these three areas, I think, are quite important in responsible AI. Yeah, those are the
Great.
trends I.
Perfect. Norma and Ray, I've shared the link to the article directly on Discord, and I've tagged you in the comment in case anyone else benefits from it. So yeah, it would help them as well. Just a couple of last questions. We still have about 4 5 minutes. Ben, oh, I love math. Ben, we should actually collaborate together. I will get in touch with you after this, and I have something in mind. I hope you like the idea. Uh, there are a lot of questions coming in now. Do you have a suggestion for annotation tool with best performance?
I don't know what they mean by best performance, but personally, I haven't really played around with annotation tools that much. But there's
Optimized
a lot.
performance, probably.
Yeah, there's a lot of different startups and established companies doing data annotations. Yeah, it's hard to say which one is performing better because there's so many. So yeah.
Yeah, okay. We'll quickly just take this is definitely the last question. Is the book also talking about Jax?
No. Jax is like a book by itself. So not really. Yeah, this is like primarily focused on TensorFlow.
Perfect. All right. So let's go back to Mariama was the first winner, of course. In case Mariama's name comes up again, we will do a draw once more. Let's hope we've got a new winner. Let's see who that is. D3V. Congratulations, D3V. Since you are watching on YouTube, well, I would request you to add me up on LinkedIn. Just add me up on LinkedIn and I'll ensure that I get you the ebook. All right, so that's about it. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you, everyone, for all your amazing questions. Tushan, is there a wrap up note that you would like to give? And then we can close the session.
Yeah, I would first like to thank everyone who participated in this session. It was really great to have all of these questions, and hopefully this book gets you to like the first grade in that school, then just sending you over to any classroom in that school. And yeah, let me always feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or Twitter, and let me know what you think.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day for people in the East, and have a good night for people in the West and people in the middle. I'm pretty sure. What are you doing up so late? Please sleep. All right. Good night, everyone.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. All right. Bye.